Hello and welcome. I am the Letterhack, and with me now is a very special guest, host of the Majority Report, the voice of Hugo on Bob's Burgers, and easily the most feared man by right-wing debaters everywhere. It's Sam Seder. Sam, how are you?
It's a pleasure to be here. I am very honored. And let me just also say, not only am I honored to be a voice in your intro, but I cannot thank you enough for all the drawings that you have done over the years. I think I've saved probably, I want to say like 80 to 90%. Like I've got it
Wow.
set up on my phone. When I see them, I click it and put it into a Dropbox, and in a folder, I have Letterhack images. I mean, I probably have ones that are 5 or 6 years old,
Wow.
maybe more. I don't know. That just so that I can show my kids someday.
Oh, wow.
It's
What
basically.
what what do they think of this? Do they I mean, because they've heard you as a cartoon. What about seeing you drawn? Do they get a kick out of that?
Um, yeah, I mean, the cartoon thing, it's just like it just seems to be currency. Like once Saul got like to be 10, it was just currency. He's like it impresses kids that it's really more like that they know Benjamin, John Benjamin, who's the voice of Bob, and then like I'm like an afterthought.
Okay.
They brag about knowing John Benjamin. When they see pictures or drawings of me, like they'll usually say if it looks good, they'll say it doesn't look like you're
Oh.
older. That's what they'll basically say. That's basically it.
That's funny because I do get comments where people are like, "You need to put more gray in that beard." And I'm like, "Oh,
There is no context in which they don't remind me that I'm old. There's no.
well, that's so cool to hear that you have like more of an archive than I do. I don't think I've saved every drawing, but that's awesome that you save those because I've been drawing people from real life my whole life and not everyone is into it. Like sometimes people are like, I don't like it." But so anyway, it's refreshing to hear that you're
Oh,
down.
it's really fun, and I always look better in your drawings than I do in real life, and so why wouldn't I be happy with that?
Well, that's great. That's awesome. And speaking of drawings, I'm going to get in on one now, but I want to. You're in the hot seat, right? So that's what we call it here. Like you got to
Okay.
watch me draw you, but I'm in the hot seat too because I'm going to watch me draw you. So it goes both ways. But usually, what I do when I get in on these drawings is I ask my guests for their origin story of how they got into this line of work. But I think it's likely that folks already know you and they know the story of Air America and the Majority Report. And I've heard you say that a lot and people can find that stuff. So what I'd like to ask you first is why, how, and when did you become such a fearless debater? You'll debate. I mean, I was watching your show today. You had two calls in a row, and you'll debate anyone, anytime without any prep. I heard the expression "debate Sam Cedar" before I knew who Sam Cedar was.
Oh,
And so I just how did that all start? Is there like a specific catalyst, or have you just always been good at making arguments?
um, I think I have to say,
Yeah.
I was going to say like I would love if my body had those dimensions. Frankly, that you're showing there, like that would be fantastic. Um, I there was there was a lot of arguing and aggression in my childhood, and so I don't. When I'm like under assault, is probably where I feel like most comfortable on some
Oh,
level, and uh, it it takes a lot to rattle me. It's usually more like I'll get rattled by things that really shouldn't in any way rattle me, and the things that should rattle me sort of just make me sort of like get zen. And then also my father still is a lawyer. And I think that teaches you, like, you're raised by lawyers. It teaches you how to argue. And I think as a kid, I was a little bit on the heavy side. I was a little bit picked on, I think, at times, and sort of, having a rhetorical response, doing stuff like, I guess we called it snaps back then. I don't know what people call it now. All of that combined, I think. And, I think in this space, when I started doing it, there was really nobody, there really wasn't many other people really doing AM talk radio. I mean, Randy Rhodes had been around for a while, and Mike Malloy and Hartman was doing, I don't know if you call it AM talk radio, but he was definitely doing, obviously like liberal left radio. And I felt like I did not have a right to be there. And it was a complete fluke that on one day I had done maybe like 4 different spots on radio, 3 on college radio and 1 on community radio. And then the next day I had a national audience. And so I think I just was determined to read and work a lot. And it took me like 5 or 6 years to realize, like, oh boy, no, other people don't seem to do that. Like I would get into interviews with reporters about the topic that they were reporting on, and I'd be telling them stuff.
Yeah, see,
that's always like, what?
Well, that's what they say, right? Like the best debaters can defend their opponent's case as well as they can their own. And so, is there any aspect of your political debates that provides you personally with like a change of opinion? Like, have you ever taken on your opponent's argument to the point where you were like, no, now I'm sort of starting to see the points that you should be making, and maybe, I don't know, does that shift your way of thinking?
I mean, I'm not debating. I mean, I think like the reason why, I mean, personally, like my debating skills, I think are probably overestimated, and to the, it's really a function of a lot of the people I debate, libertarians, right-wingers, they're not that bright. And they don't really know what they're talking about. And I think, so I don't know that I have any special powers as much as I have, the right opponents. Like, and the thing is that I've said for a long time that, on the right, with their sort of, and I think what Ben Shapiro was once considered like the right's philosopher king or whatever it was, and Rush Limbaugh, I genuinely believe, was the intellectual center of the party. I mean, like I don't even think that statement is particularly controversial anymore. Like there was a time where they sort of, someone from the National Review maybe, but that's 20 years ago plus, it seems to me. And they're just a bankrupt ideology. And if professors who were experts at these things were to debate these people, it would be ridiculous. But they're, on the, center left, center to the left, the compensation is really about, sort of having other academics appreciate your work and, discuss the soundness. And these political debates, it's not about, presenting arguments that are going to convert the other person. I don't think that's the case, really. I think that's, these are, for lack of a better term, propaganda wars. Some people take issue with my use of the term propaganda. I see it as more value neutral than others. And whether you, I don't think propaganda is necessarily lies. I think very often it is. But ideological battles, however you want to, ideological communication, whatever it is, in that sphere, they just get compensated in a different way. And so when they have to actually defend their ideas, it's a problem for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But
they're just not trained they're not. There's a reason why it's all a circle jerk with those guys. And to the extent that it's not, they leverage the exposure that you get and they leverage that to sort of discipline, I think, people who go in and talk to them. Because I'm sorry, I have no problem if Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro have no respect for me. I don't care, because I have no respect for them. And I don't respect their business. I don't respect anything of what they're doing. And I will take a poop in the punch bowl, as it were, and try and make them drink it.
Are they afraid of you? Because here's what I want to know: is it a matter of respect that they won't debate you, or that they avoid it, or are they really? Because Crowder seems to be terrified of a debate with you, and I don't know if that's because he would be exposed or he really can't hold his own.
Well, who is Crowder debating?
Dominate?
Outside of, like, honestly,
yeah, that's
outside
true.
of, like, college students, it's not like he's just
True.
afraid to debate me. Like, I don't know, but yeah, I think, look, I don't know, why, according to Tim Pool, I'm on a blacklist. I think they maybe think that they're somehow punishing me or denying me views or whatnot. I don't know if that's true, if they actually believe that, because, Steven Crowder had a debate with me. I'm not going to get the bump I got from him running away from me in terms of, like, exposure. I mean, it's just a fact. If I went on Joe Rogan, I'm not getting a bump by going on Joe Rogan. It just doesn't work that way, I don't think, because I'm not going to say anything that, that necessarily is going to attract his audience. But when he sort of dodges me or disses me, it helps. So I don't know if that's what they really believe, or if it's like they're also, maybe they are just afraid that I'm going to come in and not play the game the way that they think it is. I mean, I think if you remember, like, when Tim Pool got so mad about the Crowder thing, he's like, this ruins everything. Sam's ruining everything. And look, the bottom line was, like, Crowder was there to debate a topic. I was happy to debate that topic. It's not like I sprung, like, I've got you, and now you have to talk about, quantum physics, or I don't know, some type of special biology. I'm there to debate the topic that you presumably prepared for. What difference is it? You debate me, you debate Ethan, you debate anybody. Like, if I've got a debate scheduled with Steven Crowder, and I don't know who they would send, but if they sent somebody else, fine. Like if we're going to debate the same topic I've prepared for that debate, of course. I mean, I'd probably be willing to debate other things too, but if it's something I had no idea about, I'd be like, you know what, I don't have anything. I don't have an idea about this. But there's a different ethos, I think, with them. Like, and it's really strange. And a lot of it, I think, is just pretend. And a lot of this is like, it's really hard not to get sucked into this is a YouTube show as opposed to a show about politics.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally. It totally does. But is this sort of engagement? Is this, I want to ask you what the most positive aspect of doing the Majority Report is for you. Is it engagement like this? Is it changing minds and bringing people further left or from the right? Or is it something else?
I mean, it's all those things. I mean, also, I really am genuinely interested in the guests that we have and the topics that really, there are sometimes we get a guest. I'm like, I knew all of this already. And, because we've covered it or because they didn't have anything particularly new to say. But for the most part, I love learning new things. And then the other part that's really gratifying, I think, is like when people tell me that they were a libertarian and then they liked my show and then they moved to the left of our show and start. I love that. That to me is like it combines everything that I want. Like I want everyone who I have access to be as left, if not more left than I. And that's really gratifying. And, it's also just sort of gratifying that people, I think increasingly people are feeling isolated and that can be, if they're in a family who they don't accept, this person's politics or, who they are. At one point it was, you'd hear a lot more people say like, my family didn't accept the fact that I was gay, and listening to your show and others, made me feel like at least I had some type of ally or support, or I knew that there wasn't something wrong with me. Increasingly, that is like you hear that from folks who are trans or, and so that kind of feedback is really helpful too. I mean, helpful. I mean, it makes me feel good about what I do.
Would you rather be, this is kind of random, would you rather be president of the United States or advisor to the president of the United States? Because I think depending on the person, one of those could be way more important than the other.
Either sounds pretty good. Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I think I would be comfortable in either role, to be honest with you. I generally like to have people around me who are smarter than me.
Yeah.
And so, I feel like if you're president, you have the ability to sort of like, I'm going to get some really smart people around me. And I feel more comfortable in that, with that dynamic than the reverse, I think.
Do you consider yourself a journalist? I ask everyone this question because I know that you interview and talk to a lot of journalists. Are you a journalist in your mind?
No, I mean, I commit the act of journalism. I mean,
That's a good way
like
to put it.
I mean, if it was just I'm definitely not a reporter, obviously. And if it was just the first half of the show, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is Mark Maron a journalist? How's he doing what is different from, let's say, uh, Terry, what's her name on NPR?
Terry Gross?
Yeah, Terry Gross. I mean, I think nobody would say Terry Gross is not a journalist.
Hmm.
And how's Mark Maron doing something like at this point? I don't know that he's doing something that's terribly different from what she's doing. And I don't know if I do in that first half of the thing, like, am I doing something different than what like Charlie Rose did back in the day? I don't think so, but
Do
I
you still
don't
think there's like a
care.
level of ethical responsibility? Because look at it this way. Here's like a silly analogy. Let's say we're both stranded somewhere and I'm injured and you save my life. You're now the doctor in that situation, right? Although you may not have like med school training, but the rule of first do no harm should probably apply. So is there some sort of ethical standard or that people have to live up to if they're not exactly a journalist but in the position of like conveying the
Well,
news and
I don't know what
commentary?
ethical standard journalists.
That's a good point.
Honestly, like I think reporters, but I don't know. There are opinion journalists. Does Thomas Friedman have any standards that he
Yeah.
operates on? I may have like personal ones, personal integrity. Um, but are there standards? Well, almost definitionally no. I mean, within the YouTube business, because no one's making implies standards cut across to everybody, and I think everybody sort of makes their own sort of like notion of what is appropriate for them. I get policed by my audience. I mean, I personally, for me, I don't want to listen to somebody who won't correct their mistakes, won't acknowledge when they don't know what they're talking about.
Hmm.
Is sort of lies, I guess. For me, it is very important that if we give out information, it's accurate. And we fail sometimes. And I try to acknowledge that. And sometimes more often than not, we try to correct it. At the very least, I'll, acknowledge it. Like, we got some pushback on the Grimm interview. I need to go back over it when he was talking about the lab leak. And I think we were pretty clear, like saying a couple of times, like, there is no evidence.
Right.
And I don't know if I have the ability to refute his assumptions. Like I've read a couple of people, and some of it's hard for me to synthesize. But like I will find, terra firma in that situation, and just sort of like plant my flag there, and not go necessarily further than people want me to. Not go further just because people want me to go further, if that makes sense. Like I know for a fact there's no hard evidence about a lab leak. I think it's possible. I don't know necessarily how to assess the Slack conversations and stuff like that. I mean, there are, and you listen to the show. There are times where people come in and like, I want you to, give a definitive answer on this person or that thing, and I'm like, it's not. I can't, and I'm not going to give one either way, because I either don't have the resources or the time to dig into it, People can argue that I should. That's the best use of my resources or time. But I will just cop to, like, that's what I'm doing. Like, if I'm checking out on something, at the very least, I'll just like say I'm checking out. Like, that's not. I don't. It's not important from my perspective, for me to have the answer for everything. And I would rather say, like, this is as far as I go with this inquiry. Here's what I have for you. But so, today, like, we tried to say, like, acknowledge that there were people who had issue with the Grimm thing, but I have limited, I don't have the ability to parse all this out, and it's really, I think, and so I'll just, like, retreat, if you will, to where I know I can confidently say this, and that's where I'll stop.
There's a term that comes up in these interviews, which are all my interviews, both in the guest and the questions and the topics we discuss have to do with left-wing media and particularly independent left-wing media. And another term that's come up a few times in describing online media is edutainer or edutainment. Jean Bajalan was recently on, and he said, this is a quote from him: "The best online media can be in its current iteration is educational entertainment." And for context, we were talking about this idea of media activism and whether podcast hosts or politicos on social media with popular accounts can inspire boots on the ground, or is that even fair of an expectation to have? But I wonder, what are your thoughts on the term edutainment? Is that what we're talking about? And do you think a degree of media activism is possible through your work?
I mean, edutainment, that sounds as good of a description as anything else, in my mind. And I would imagine there's, a range within there, but yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I don't know if our shows, frankly, are big enough to do that. Like, I've seen examples where Air America, I've told the story, I think, many times. I don't know if I've told this on air. Maybe I have, but and it was really just to show the incompetence of the people who work there, the management. But we got a lot of people to. I think we did one ad for some. I want to say the Rockettes, but I'm not sure. We're striking.
Okay.
And we did one ad for them, and within like 72 hours, management said, like, we'll concede this, this, and this. Come back to the bargaining table.
Wow.
The only thing we ask is take the ad off the air.
Oh, wow.
Now that's not like boots on the ground.
Yeah.
I know that, like, Levin and Ingram and right-wing media was able to really inhibit immigration reform in 2000, I want to say 5. On the left, like, I to be honest with you, when I think about, like, what we can do on the show, it's usually like, I feel like
fundraising.
We can do fundraising, but I like to think that what we can do is provide resources for the people who are organizing other people.
And platform those people. You do that a lot.
And platform those people, which we've had people who've come on and people have emailed and said, we learned a lot from you having on this person from Starbucks or Amazon or whoever it is, and we unionized our shop. And that's always been, like, in making the transition from radio to a podcast and a YouTube show where the audience is a fraction. Like, we had potentially millions of listeners. We had drive time in LA and New York and Chicago, and Dallas, and Miami, and I mean, we were in all those cities. And then, now we're down, we're talking tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, but not much more than that. Over a course of a month, it may be a little bit more via YouTube. Maybe it's a couple million, 3 million, but they're not watching just, they're watching a clip or something like that. And I think like the biggest impact we can have is getting resources for people who are doing the work. That's why I say, like, I don't have a problem preaching to the choir, because
Right.
I preach to the choir, and then the choir goes out and they're the ones who are doing the bake sales. They're the ones who are getting their neighbors to come out and, do the church car wash. Or I've never been part of a church, so I don't really know what they do, but
They do car washes, I think. Yeah.
Okay, that's my assumption.
Accurate.
The choir, the people in the choir are the ones going out and doing all that other stuff. They're doing the food drive. They're doing the clothing drive. They're manning the soup kitchen. I got no problem preaching to the choir, none whatsoever. It's sort of what the show is designed to do, and to the extent that we're educating people, we're educating the choir, and hoping that they're going out and doing, those stuff. I have a lot of respect for those people, and hard for me not to think that what they're doing has a lot more sort of like heft than what I'm doing. I'm doing what I can do based upon my limited skill sets. And so,
well, I would not sell yourself short. I mean, I specifically came to the Majority Report because I was watching independent media that was getting me riled up and interested, but it wasn't teaching me anything. And it was started to be purely entertaining. And it was sort of like I was picking up on like the hostility, and I was like, gosh, we're being like angry every day for a couple of hours watching this show. And so I went to the Majority Report because I was looking for something like, people always say, oh, I want something more boring. And I think what they mean is they want interviews, they want insight, they want they want to hear from the people who write the articles and hear what went into their thought process, and why they decided to write these articles, and what's the rest of the story. And you provide that. And I think that, when it comes to this thing that we call the online left, people say get away from that term, right? They say focus more on having things like, groups, real life groups, right? Like, when it comes to, well, it's really because, okay, so the online left what does that term mean to you? I wonder, because is it just a bunch of people arguing about ideology for clicks? Or is there a version of that actually allows for policy discussion and moving people to vote for progressive change? Because I think that would be the key, right, to any sort of online entity for the left. Like, so just what does that mean to you? And are you a part of the online left?
I mean, I would imagine. I think it's easy to overestimate how many votes are changed by what's developed here. But and I think it's you can see some campaigns, both like Republican and Democrat, that clearly they are spending too much time online. Like they're and by that I don't even mean like they're on their. What I mean is that they're overly influenced by what they see online, in terms of it losing perspective on how representative it is of the general population. Like one of the things that a veteran radio guy said, like, don't listen to your callers too much. Like, not literally in the conversation, but like they're your callers don't. You have 10 callers, and 9 of them say, vote yes, and the 10th says vote no. That doesn't mean that your audience or that the general population, these are self-selected people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's true also with the online left. This self-selected people who are not just, they tend to be more engaged, more informed, more opinionated than even your average leftist. And they aren't necessarily representative of anything. So it's not necessarily like about elections. It's about creating perceptions amongst the politicians, and they get those perceptions via journalists. Like there's a certain amount of fiction that takes place, not so much in what is being said, but in terms of like how representative this is. I mean, it's a very strange thing, right? Like why would John Roberts feel any political pressure?
Right.
Why would any of these entities, why would anybody feel any political pressure? It's not necessarily tangible. Nobody's coming to like kidnap John Roberts.
Right.
But like we're social beings, and we feel pressure from just like other people having opinions around us that are different than ours. We feel pressure. We don't want to be judged. We don't, John Roberts could do whatever he wants, and his material life is not going to be dramatically affected one way or another. Now, I don't know. John Roberts could be like going on great fishing trips with a billionaire, and that you could alienate that billionaire and he wouldn't go on those trips. But he's still going to go out to nice restaurants. He's still going to have people probably picking up his tab. Like, why would this guy feel any pressure? But he does, right? Like, and we all, why do like friends feel pressure? Like, like 3 or 4 of my friends are upset because they didn't want me to break up with that guy, and I'm feeling the pressure, or I'm not getting along with that person, or that, like, why do we feel that pressure? That's what is happening in our social media, in our politics world. We're creating pressure that is because we're social beings, and you don't necessarily need that many people to do it. So like, I don't know that we're implicating a lot of votes, but I think that like the left is implicating the perceptions of people who are either delivering perceptions to politicians or politicians who are receiving those perceptions.
I call it, and I try to avoid this, I call it awareness steroids, where somebody has got their finger on the pulse to the degree where they can have these great conversations, but it doesn't translate to anything. You just sound like you know everything, but how does that fix issues? What are your solutions when it comes to actually policy? And so what I usually end up doing is just recommending people watch shows like yours.
Well,
like just to get more informed,
As people are more informed, they will find opportunities in which to express that. And it becomes harder for, our politics to be less responsive, or to be unresponsive. It's still quite good at being unresponsive. It just becomes harder. And the idea is to get it increasingly harder, to make things more democratic and to create more democratic reforms. I mean, Joe Biden's going to, with this new plan, is going to relieve, I think he just relieved, was it $60 billion worth of debt? Maybe it was $90 billion. He's going to relieve another $360 billion, or it could be up to, in this income-derived plan. And you got to jump through hoops a little bit. The hoops aren't like horrible. You got to reach the people and let them know. I mean, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, student debt relief would be better. His last plan that got rejected by the Supreme Court would have done $400 billion. So this is like, 360. It's, 20% less. And excuse me, 10% less if everybody takes advantage of it. He didn't. I don't know if he needed to do it. He felt pressure. I don't think he wanted to do it. He felt pressure. And where does that pressure come from? Like, I think the online left has impact in terms of that it can create pressure, but I think it also can diminish its ability to create pressure.
Infighting, maybe, like when you don't focus fire on the right.
In my opinion, yeah. And like, for instance, I find Twitter less relevant these days. The signal to noise ratio is screwed up relative to like how many interesting stories I get from Twitter. That's what it used to be, like an RSS feed to me. I also think it's less relevant in the sense that reporters that I don't have access to, or you don't have access to, or journalists that we don't have access to. I think Twitter used to shape their sense of what's going on in the world a lot more than it does now. I think now it's just easier for them to dismiss it. I know it's easier for me to dismiss it. Like, I look at this stuff like, I just realized, like, I used to have a policy where I would never block anybody. I would just never block anybody. There was no, maybe if like, honestly, if like they were attacking somebody else on our show, but like, I want to know, like, what exactly are you calling me? Like, I want that information. Like there was nothing that would ever get me to block somebody.
See, fearless.
No, it's not fearless. It's just like there's a synapse missing, I think, honestly. And I just don't react to it in the same way. It's not that I'm brave about it. It's just I just have a different reaction. And now I'm just like, it's just too much junk. It's like I'm not learning anything even from there, where I used to think like, okay, this is interesting to know, or at least this perspective. Or it's like giving me assessment of like, oh, there's this many people out there who will say like you're a Jew, or there's this many people out there who will say, get this level of vitriol. But now it's such a sewer, Twitter.
Worse every day.
Worse every day that I'll just like I'll block without even thinking about it. And there's always been some people I mute, but that was always a function of more like, I know you're having this debate with this other person, but you don't need to tag me in it. I don't need to see your 4-day long debate. Right. About like I don't have time to follow that, and for you to tag me in like 60 tweets, I can't see people who are trying to reach me, and maybe have a piece of information that's going to be helpful. The idea that you're going back and forth saying like, you said this word 5 tweets ago, like I don't, so I'll mute in those situations, but I would never block, and now I just do. And so I think like Twitter's value, and I think that's, and I guess like when things turn into a shit show and I can't follow them, and I realize like this is such a shit show, I don't, if I get to the bottom of this, it's still not worth the energy that I'm going to have to involve myself in to get to the bottom of. It's just not worth it. And
I think blocking is self-care.
Well, yeah, but what I guess my point is I'm talking about the blocking as my sense of like that the place is turned into a shit show, and its value to me as a signaling, as to get a sense of what's going on in society or within a certain community, which was limited to begin with, because it's I don't think it's fully representative, but I think a lot of, again, journalists I wouldn't have access to.
Right.
I think it used to shape their perceptions in a way that you could gain, right? As an activist, like you want to gain those perceptions so that they're bringing, like, this wouldn't be politically damaging to relieve all debt. I mean, there's a reason why people do these type of campaigns, why they have bots, why they do this, is because they want people to feel like that the mass of people believes this or the mass of people believe that. And I think as a signaling device, because it's become so overrun and sort of like decrepit, I don't think it's as effective as it used to be in that way. And I think that dynamic can play out amongst the left in YouTube, amongst the left in different areas. Like at one point where a politician is like, I can't figure out what the message that I'm supposed to be getting from this group is. And it's not necessarily, telling me about something that's going to help my political future or career or my political agenda. And if it's not going to hit, if it's not going to help those, or you can't convince a politician that it's going to help one of those, then like you don't have any power.
Well, along the same lines of, the online sphere, but probably significantly more positive, I want to ask you some questions about the audio edition of Against the Web. Is that okay?
Yeah, but let me just add one more thing.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I think where the online, that's like one sort of theory of change, is like how you can influence politicians. But I do think like the stuff, we try and do it on Wednesdays in particular, but broadly speaking, like getting people to organize and showing people, other people, that they successfully withheld their labor or used their labor to get more power, I think is also really helpful. Just showing people that.
Yeah.
Like every bottom up, like a lot of like the UPS thing. I think we spoke to someone the other day from Labor Notes who was like, the membership was inspired, was leading the leadership in many ways. And the membership is doing that because they're looking at other places that are unionized. And like, I can't remember, we spoke to someone from Louisville maybe, who they just had, maybe it was Starbucks and a couple other coffee places.
I don't know how you keep it straight, to be honest.
I can barely remember, but they were inspired by the labor action that the teachers took, a couple of years ago back during the Red State.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and so, but if you don't live in Kentucky or like, any of those 5 or 7 states that the Red State Revolt that happened, you might not be aware of it. And so for someone maybe in Pennsylvania doesn't watch the news, it's not like those things get a lot of coverage. They can hear about it. It can inspire them. I mean, we can't do the organizing, but we can inspire the organizers, I think, a little bit.
That's a good way to say it. And I mean, I could talk about this topic forever. I've had whole shows about it already, just this topic. It's so interesting, and there's so many different perspectives, and it's incredibly valuable to get that insight from somebody like yourself, who this is like what you do, right? Like when somebody says online left, they're thinking of you. They're thinking of the people who do what you do online. So it's very valuable. I don't want to let you go before I got 2 more things. One, I want to talk about the audio edition of Against the Web by Michael Brooks. And I never let my guests go without recommending a comic book to them. And I have one that I think you'll be into. So I have to at least get to that point. But okay. So for anyone who doesn't know, there's an audio edition of Against the Web by Michael Brooks as narrated by Sam Seder. And the link to that will be in the description of this podcast. So you can scroll down and check that out. I highly encourage it. I just had Matt Binder on, and he and I and Sandy Lovis were joined. We're talking about the book and the impact it had on us, but specifically hearing you read it. And I have to assume, like, this came up, and I want some, you confirm or deny, but I have to assume that this was a unique project for you because you and Michael were friends and colleagues, and I want to know, was this a particularly special project for you to be a part of, and did that and did your relationship with Michael lead to you agreeing to do the official never? Like, was there ever any question?
Oh no, Michael's sister Leisha asked me if I would.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
And I said, of course. No, I don't even voice books. I mean, I voice my own book, but it's not. I've never even contemplated like doing that as a job. It was completely because it was Michael's book.
Was it?
And it was because Leisha asked. I mean,
how could you say no?
I mean, I would have no interest in saying no, but I mean, that was it.
Well, you did a really good job. I wonder if it was ever difficult to keep a straight face, like when doing like Jordan Peterson impressions or whatever. I mean, I know you do that stuff, but for me, I had to hit pause because I was laughing. Did you have to do multiple takes or?
No, actually, no. Like,
okay.
My ability to read and talk, that's basically that, that's basically in my wheelhouse and to the the outer limits of my wheelhouse, let's say. So it's both those things. But I appreciate you saying that. Like, I felt bad because I was like, Michael could do this so much better. And I mean, it's true. And he was incredibly gifted at I mean, not just doing voices, impressions, but there are people who do impressions that are like, they want to sound like somebody.
Yeah.
And there are people who do impressions that like they get the voice, they get the mannerisms, but they also fundamentally make an assessment as to what the essence is.
Yeah.
And present that. And
that's kind of how I draw people in that same way. Like, it doesn't look exactly like them, but it's them. It's the perfect representation. And
in politics, it's really hard to do and make it funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and I've worked with, at least from like a generational, I've worked and personally known, I think probably, certainly arguably, some of the best comedians in the country. And I've worked with a lot of like really great comedians that nobody's ever heard of, really. And he had a very unique talent for that.
I like that you think he could have, or that you say he could have done it so much better than you, because now we can imagine him making fun of you for not doing it as well as he could have, which honestly, there's so many layers to.
Oh my God. Like,
that's why you're perfect for doing it.
I was like, oh, this is the most hilarious part about it to me. It's just like how annoyed Michael would be if he knew that I had read his book. had narrated his book. He would be so fucking
You think
annoyed.
he wouldn't
But
be
not so much that like he would want necessarily someone else to do it. I just like
right.
it you know, Michael and I were not like, you know, on the show. I'm not that social of a person, and so like Michael and I would go out occasionally, but not as much as I think people would imagine over the course of 8 years. And I think our relationship was more like brothers than it was. I don't have a brother, but I imagine than it was as like close friends. I mean, he had you know. And there was like, and I think I was sort of like, I think we had some type of like brotherly rivalry, and I think he probably had it a little bit more with me, frankly, than I had with him because I was just older and I didn't like, and there were times early on, like I was brutal with him, I mean, on the show. I mean, people would go back and listen, and I would give him a lot of shit, and he would like. I think Bender remembers like it was a guest list. Like I had asked him, he was a producer when he first came on the show. I'm like, we need a list of our guests because we don't have one on the website, and I want you to write the guest list. And like a week would go by, and I'm like, how's it going? Yeah, I haven't gotten to it. 2 weeks, month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And I just start giving shit about it on the show. Like, how the hell are you not doing this guest list? And he was, and he would also probably admit that he was also like a shitty producer. Like he never did any, I don't know if he did this consciously or not, but like, that saying, like, never get good at a job that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Michael.
Okay.
That was Michael. And there were times where like, I just like, no, like I would fire him right now if it wasn't for the fact that he was so funny. Like,
really?
I was like, I'd fire you right now. You're the worst producer I've ever seen. But he was too funny. And he was also super smart. And that was like, we would have a lot of conversations off camera that would inform things that we would say on camera. And by having someone like that in, sitting 5 feet away, particularly in that old office that we had, your opinions get sharper. And your assessments get sharper, and the way that you read gets sharper. And but I think it would annoy him just because he thought that like maybe I was enjoying it, or that he would definitely there's a lot of things, and down the road that maybe I'll talk about that I know that he's either laughing or bitching about, if he has any awareness of what's going on down here.
That's great.
And so it definitely occurred to me, like, it's like, I can't fucking believe that Sam is going to get laughs off of shit that I wrote.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They annoy the shit out of him. But at the same time, I think he also was like, would be happy, that that the book was able to get out there in another way. So he'd be torn. He'd be torn about it.
Well, take it from me. It's a big deal to the fans of the show and the fans of you and the fans of him and the work that you did together. We all, I mean, everyone was electric when it became available, and that's why I continue to push the book, and especially the audio version, and make sure that everyone checks it out.
And I would encourage people to go and check out the TMBS archives. Michael did some great interviews on Thursdays on the show back in the day, but I think like he really was coming into his own on TMBS. I contend that he was still like his best work was definitely ahead of him.
Yep.
He would be 40 in less than 2 weeks. We're going to celebrate his 40th birthday on August, whatever the Monday is after his birthday. I think it's the 14th. And trying to check my phone to see when we have it penciled in. We're going to do it on Friday. I think we're going to do it on Monday the 14th. And he would have been 40 on the 13th. I think that, like, in my observation, 40 is where you really hit the stride in that work, and he would have been doing it by now for I think 11 years. He probably would have been having done it for, somewhere around there.
Sounds right.
And I really think that, like, the next 10 years would have been, I think he would have done stuff that, like, I mean, who knows? But I think I think his career would have been amazing. I think he would have done some important stuff.
Yeah, I think of it as both admiration and sort of selfishness, that sometimes there's people out there who, if they had been around one more day, you would have had so much more to enjoy from them or to absorb from their work, right? And he's one of those people, like, just one more day and you would have had so much more to appreciate or to find value in.
Yeah. I mean, it's I really do lament it. There's been a couple of people who, in that, like, sort of this world, I mean, obviously I have a different relation with Michael because it was much more close and personal and direct, but those guys, Steve Gilliard, I don't know if you were around at that time. He was a Daily Kos blogger, and then was writing his own stuff. And there were times where I would be like, God, I wish I could read what he said about this that happened today. And there's been a lot of things that, over the past 3 years that I've been like, hey, I wish I could hear what Michael would have said about this, or what his perspective.
Yeah. It's another topic I could go on and on about.
Exactly.
Well, before we go, and I want to thank you again for being here. It's sensational. I really do appreciate your time.
My pleasure. I appreciate the work you did too. It's fun.
I mean, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And along those lines, one thing that we talk about here, besides politics and the people who discuss politics, is comic books and art. And I wonder, have you ever been a fan or a collector of comics?
When I was a kid, I was into DC Comics.
There you go.
And I gotta say, I just watched Flash with
you did.
And it's so much better than the Marvel stuff. Like, this was. I didn't think I would like the Flash at all based upon the ads I saw, and I was like, look, threshold's low. I'm watching it with the but I was like, okay, I get it. You go through, you can travel, and there's no, like, every Marvel thing is all just Deus Ex Machina. Like, every 5 minutes, it's just a reason to have the exact same fight over and over again. And now it's like, oh, this guy's from, like, the 15th other alternate universe in the 35th alternate universe. It's just like, because there's no constraints. There's no, like, they're not even making a world because there's no physics or anything like that.
You're going to get me in trouble if we keep going down this road, because, like, I'll have you here for another few days talking about this. The movies have backed me into a corner as a purist for the books. Because,
well, I mean, I'm sure that the books might be better. It just so happens, like, I don't know how I liked Batman when I was a kid.
Yeah, same.
I liked Batman.
Tim Burton.
So that's how I ended up. Well, no, Tim Burton.
Oh, you mean prior?
I mean, dude.
Adam West?
Adam West was contemporary for me. I mean, I was my son's age in 1976. So
Okay.
like Tim Burton, I don't even think he was born. But
No,
like,
I don't think so.
um, uh, I read Batman, and I think that got me into the DC world. I never really understood like Thor or the Fantastic Four. Like I get it at one, and I'm like, I don't. All this stuff going, I don't get it. I didn't get it, and I was like, Spider-Man's okay, but he's no Batman.
Yeah.
Batman had real pathos, and so I did pick up I think the first edition of Firestorm. I don't even know if that comic still exists anymore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure. They're all
just
out
because it
there.
was a DC, and I don't know. I don't know where I got my comics. I don't know where I got the cash, but
David Sirota was talking about Booster Gold and said no one's probably ever heard of him. And I was like, the movie will be out in a couple of years. Actually, they're actively making this. So any obscure character is still relevant somewhere, right? Or somebody will make them relevant, make a whole franchise out of it. But I like to recommend books that aren't superhero oriented because I really want people, especially people who don't know a lot about comics, to realize that there's a lot more to it, right?
right, of course.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have 3 bookshelves full of Batman and Superman, so I get it. But I have one for you that's French, a French comic, and they actually call them bande dessinée, which is literally translates to drawn strips. Over here,
am I gonna have to learn to speak French?
No, it's been translated. Although I have comics like Conan the Barbarian, he's in the public domain over in Europe, so I have whole like Conan comics you can't get anywhere else, but they're in French. Luckily, they seem to be faithful adaptations, and I can kind of follow along, and I still appreciate the art. But this one is a French book that's been translated. Over here it's commercial properties, like we were saying, in franchises, but in Europe and France, they treat comics as like like a real art form. They have a genuine appreciation for it. It's more like in Japan, but in Japan, they really crank them out. So I thought this was a good one because it's a thoughtful comic, but it's also a biography. Are you familiar with Robert Capa?
No.
So it's called Robert Capa, a graphic biography written and illustrated by French comics creator Florent Silleray. The comic is a brilliant portrayal of the career of the great war photographer who famously said, if your pictures aren't good enough, you aren't close enough. And so, he had to get close to the action. He was the only civilian photographer at Omaha Beach on D-Day. Wow. He took hundreds of photographs. 11 of them were worth showing. He was the first person to photograph the Tour de France from the back of a motorcycle, which they all hated, but he said everyone else is just waiting for the bikes to come by. I want to get out there. He was friends with Hemingway, Steinbeck. He had an affair with Ingrid Bergman. Sensational guy, really, really fascinating individual. And the comic is a great. It's just fitting to read his biography as a comic because this is a man who used visuals to tell stories.
Right.
That's what comics are. So I thought it was appropriate, and I thought you would dig it. There was a documentary about him called The Mexican Suitcase. Maybe you've heard of that, from 2011. They just randomly found boxes of like 4,500 film negatives of his and other people associated with his film studio, his production studio. It's fascinating. And so he was, he's like the war photographer. And so I thought you would appreciate, especially that quote, if your pictures aren't good enough, you aren't close enough.
What's his name?
Robert Capa.
What's the name of the comic?
That's it, Robert Capa.
Okay. How do I Capa?
I'll put this online tomorrow or later today, like I always do, and let everyone see the cover and tag any creators if possible. But it's called Robert Capa, a graphic biography. It's a hardback book. It's not real expensive. It's not super long. It's narrated by the main character, which is something that would be clunky, like in a movie or TV or maybe even a novel, but really works well in a comic book and shows people how, the medium has a lot of flexibility.
Well, Matt, it sounds great. I've got to jump. I got a 6:00.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Really,
I really appreciate it.
And glad that we could do this. And thanks again for all the work you do.
Okay, Sam, thank you so much. Everyone, find the links in the description of this podcast. Take care. We'll see you next time.
All right. So long.